Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your closing bell for Friday, September 16th, 2022. As yes, the weekend is here. Yes, there's college football here. Yes, it's Fade the Public Friday. We don't want to be the pizza man, as we like to say here on Fridays. The return of Beam 'em Up Scottie Webb himself is myself and him will get you through on Fridays is a shortened version of the MLB network. And what we will do is basically get you caught up to speed, what's going on, yada, yada, yada. And then at 4:30, we bring in Mr. Lucky for week two. He'll give us his quick breakdown of what happened in week one, what he sees in week two, and then we'll spend the last 15 minutes on the Circa contest in week two. And I talked about the Survivor contest throughout the week. I'm just going to add this one more time. Pick one, no spread, no ties either. 6,133 people entered, 2,685 left, and 500 were blessed. 502 to be exact were blessed with the Saints. So it was kind of comical how week one ended up. It is what it is. But without further ado, let's bring him in from the Palm Tree State himself, the one, the only, beam him up, Scottie, Mr. Scottie Webb. Afternoon, sir.
Mr. Jeffrey, it is another Friday in the books, right? Or getting ready to be in the books, and into another weekend. And pretty soon it'll be Halloween or something, and then all of a sudden we'll be going, holy cow, we're in the playoff season. And all of a sudden we'll be going, oh Christ, it's baseball time again.
Comedy Central. You know this. You've known us. You've known me for a long, long time. It's all about numbers. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with the logo on the front and the name on the back. And to anyone that listened, and I use the word anyone that listened, I couldn't have painted a better picture yesterday. Vegas was telling me the final score was going to be 28-24 on Kansas City. Now, if you went strictly by the opening numbers, it was going to be 27-23 or 27-24. Okay. Kansas City's team total 28.5 over. Chargers team total 24.5 over. Game opened at 3, went to 3.5, closed at 4. Under over opened at 51.5. I guess some people had it as high as 54. I didn't see any 54s. The point of the matter is Vegas is damn sharp, and all the underplays came in, and it took a fourth and 7 to be exact, a hell of a catch by Mr. Palmer, where technically, Chargers were supposed to kick that field goal, cut it to 7, not 3, and then go for the onside kick.
Well, sportsbook's been around a long time, brother. And they know what they're doing for the most part. And the issue with the NFL, if people don't really realize this yet, there's so many people that bet into that market, by the time kickoff comes around, it's a pretty clean number. I mean, that's a good number. It's a hard number to beat. And, the CLV guys out there pumping their chest and stuff all the time. That's not what it's. I mean, there's a guy, famous guy. He's now doing shows on Covers and everywhere else. Lots of different segments that he's on. Has 1,000. I don't know. That's not the right word. Maybe he's got 150 bets that he's already made throughout the season, and he publishes them and puts them out there and says, look at all these bets and look at my CLV on all these things. And then he comes up 500, right? So CLV is important, but you got to really remember a couple of things. Last week in the NFL, we talked about there was a bunch of home dogs, but we talked about specifically teams within division at home dogs, and those were charms to bet on last week. This week in the NFL, you got a different story when you get to the NFL. And I don't know if you want to talk about the NFL, baseball, or whatever, but NFL wise, this week you got another problem. It's everybody that started had a month to prepare for the team that they played. I mean, so if you're going to bet underdogs, that was the week to do it, right? I mean, they sit there and game plan for them for a month or more. So now they get game plan for 5-6 days. They got to put that thing in. They got to try to operate, and they got to work. So that's disadvantage number one. Number two disadvantage is that the teams, and I was going to look this up and have this ready for you, but there were at minimum 3 or 4 teams, I think it was, minimum 3 or 4 teams that won straight up, but were out-yarded, out-gained, out everything, and they won the game. And that doesn't happen very often. It's, you either outplay your opponent or you don't. And then now you're going to expect these teams, like Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh got out-yarded. And I get it that they played a better game, but they still could have lost that game. There's the Denver Broncos got out-yarded Seattle and still lost. There's these games are all over the place. And then now coming into week 2, you're going to look at it and go, okay, well, Seattle's pretty damn good. Well, no, they're not. They had a month to prepare for that. And now Geno Smith played like he was an all-star in the first half, and then he was a dud in the second half. And now he's going to have to go play in San Francisco, who played all out in the rain. So we don't know what kind of thing to expect from them. But the point being is that week 2 is a lot different. You got head coaches that haven't ever done week 2 yet. They haven't had to do a game plan within, the first 4 or 5 days. These are brand new guys going out there and trying to do this. So there's some, and then you got the injuries that happened, right? I mean, Pittsburgh's defense was what won them that game, and now their best player is not going to play. So you got to look at a lot of different things in week 2 in the NFL that's different. I will also tell you that one of the things that is overlooked that is a bonus is if you're the Denver Broncos, you have a significant home field edge in week 2 or week 1 if you're at home than you do any other time. So you got to bet them at home now because your home field edge is bigger. And it's only bigger because how many of these guys actually played full games and are ready to go from preseason? They looked like shit first week. A lot of sloppy football. That's going to start cleaning up as these guys get playing all the time. It's going to clean up. And then your better teams are not going to have these problems that they had the last time out. And then when you look at the Broncos are going to be playing at home against a team that really hasn't even played but one full game so far. And then however many games they played, quarters or whatever they played in preseason. And now they got to play in altitude. So that's the home field edge that nobody thinks about in week 2.
Who do the Denver Broncos have?
They got Houston this week. That's a 14-pointer, if not more than that, buddy.
Didn't Houston play a full, not just game, a full 10 minutes extra as well?
Oh, yeah. They played Indianapolis to a tie.
The only downside that I do have is, again, you talk about a short week. Now you played on Monday night, and now you get home on Tuesday morning. You do the Whirlpool Tuesday afternoon, you do the walkthrough on Wednesday, and then you do the pads on Friday or Thursday. The whole thing is so screwed up now. I was talking to a couple of people in our lanes. I was listening to Sirius Radio yesterday on my trip up and back from Yukon. And the fact of the matter is now is you don't get any official news till Wednesday. This guy didn't practice. This guy didn't practice. And it used to be, okay, well, he needs to practice on Thursday. No, it's not. He needs to practice on Friday. If he practices on Friday, he's playing on Sunday. If they don't practice on Friday, all you fantasy players, look out.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I think consistency is now trying to happen with some of the stuff. I just think that the NFL is going to be a little. I think if you're looking for the underdogs to hit like they did last week, I don't think you're going to be barking up the right tree. Now, that doesn't mean underdogs aren't going to win, because they do, but you gotta understand what you're looking at this week. It's a different week than it was last week. Like there's a football game tonight. The college football game tonight with Louisville and Florida State, and Louisville just came off of a big win against UCF, and they got slaughtered by Syracuse. And then you got, Florida State just came off a big win against LSU, but it's not coming off a big win. They got a bye. That's what they're off of. They're off of a bye. So they can do a lot of different things and be more healthy and be more ready to go for this game, or even change around a little bit of offense or a little bit of defense based on what they did the last two games. So there's a lot of stuff that you got to look at. If you want me to do baseball real quick, I got to play for baseball, and then we can do college. I got to play for tonight, but whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we got about 15 minutes till we bring on Mr. Lucky. So we'll start with college. There are a couple games, and like last night, Kansas City and the Chargers, I'll just tell you right now, Vegas is telling me Florida State wins 30-27. Now that line tiptoed up to 3, and it came crashing back down to 2.5. Once the Sharps saw the 3 hit the board, they grabbed Louisville plus the 3. I was on Florida State against LSU in week number 1 or 0, whatever the hell week that was. We were on Louisville we were on Louisville team total the last week. Unfortunately, I didn't have them in the game. I liked them in that spot +6. I thought we'd get cute and get the team total. And they not only did they cover, they went outright, and they did not get to their team total. So be interested in what you see in the Florida State Louisville game.
So the biggest thing that I see here is neither team plays great defense, and Louisville plays a little bit better defense than what Florida State has so far. Now, having said that, that doesn't necessarily mean the matchups are good for either one of them. Now, Florida State, I think, has a really good, especially rushing edge here. They can run the football if they want to, and I think that's going to help. I think that should help them a lot, because that should open up some pass for them as they move the ball forward. I mean, their rushing offense EPA is 58th in the country, and the defense they're going against is 119th out of 131 schools. So I like the idea that they have a pretty big edge. Now, on the other side of that, you've got the Louisville offense that's 86th in EPA, and you've got 124th ranked Florida State in EPA out of 131 schools. So their defense has been pretty roughshod. But when you start to match them up in a little different perspective, when you go to like Football Outsiders and you start looking at their numbers, the DVOA type stuff, the offensive efficiency rating for Louisville is 53. And hey, TJ. And then you have the defense they're going to go against is 49th. So that's a pretty even matchup. You look at drive efficiency for Louisville, it's 94th and 114th for Florida State. So I like Florida State's defense to hold their own. And I think this game might come down to the quarterbacks. And if it comes down to the quarterbacks, give me Jordan Travis. He's been much, much better quarterback than Malik Cunningham. Malik Cunningham EPA 91st in the country, and QBR ranked 69th, and Jordan Travis is 32nd EPA and 15th when it comes to QBR. So I like the way Florida State matches up here against Louisville. I also like that Florida State's already had a road game, and it was a big road game. They played it was a neutral site in the game they played against LSU. Sort of a neutral site. It was in New Orleans, so it can't be that neutral, but it wasn't at LSU Stadium. So anyway, that being said, that means that they have traveled already. The kids have prepared. The coaches have done this kind of thing before, and I like the head coach they have there. I think he makes adjustments. I think he does different things. I don't think he's in over his head. And the guy from Louisville came from Appalachian State. And I'm not so sure that he has done a whole lot with what he's been given since he's been in Louisville. He's more of a kind of 500-ish kind of thing. So anyway, I think Florida State covers the spread 2.5. I'm not betting it, but I think they cover the spread 2.5. My numbers say they win by 4, but whatever that means at this point. So I do have an opinion on the other game, the Air Force game, and I did bet the Air Force game. So anyway,
No, go ahead. You can go.
the Air Force game is moving in the direction that is the way I like it. I like Air Force in the game. I think this game opened somewhere in the neighborhood. Was it 14.5, 15, something like that? I ended up betting it at 15.5. I think it's 16.5 right now. And I would tell you, and I'm going to throw caution to the wind here. My numbers come out to a 17 to 24 point win, depending on which model I'm looking at. So I like Air Force to win this game now, and I like them to cover 15.5, or I wouldn't have bet it that way, but 15.5 and 16.5 ain't much difference. I mean, there is, but there's not much. So if you're going to play it, I'm okay if you bet 16.5. I would put it out there at 16.5 on air like this. But once you get to 17 or higher, you need to stop. Because I think the game could very easily be a 17-point win. So again, I like the game, and the reason that I like the game is because Air Force is one of these spots where they can run the football. Now, with Wyoming in the past, especially at Wyoming, has had great defenses. And the issue is that this year their defense against the run 86th in EPA. It's about middle of the pack, a little less than middle, or more worse than middle of the pack. But they're going to face an offense that can run the football. And Wyoming has no offense. I mean, currently they rank 112th out of 131 schools in offense. They pass the ball at 97th ranked and run the ball at 114th ranked. They played Illinois, and if you watched them play Illinois, it was like watching paint dry. It wasn't very fun. But Illinois did dominate that football game. And if you're going to ask me if Air Force and Illinois, I mean, Air Force is a top 25 team. Illinois, I don't think, is a 25 top ranked team. So I think Air Force is a better team basically than what Illinois is. So Illinois has played them a lot. I think Wyoming has a little bit of an edge in a sense that they're used to the option. They've seen it before and have done pretty well against them. Now, having said that, every school, every season is different, and these guys are not the same guys. So I like the idea here that Air Force dominates. Wyoming's quarterback is 102 in EPA and 115 in QBR. There's only 131 schools, so it can't get much worse than what they have. So the only hope they have is to limit Air Force to not scoring points, and Air Force has been scoring a ton. So give me Air Force minus the 15.5 is what I played them at. If you play it at 17, you might push it 17, but don't play it any higher than 17.
Baseball, we're winding down to the last 2.5 weeks. This week, not a lot going on. I mean, Judge, a big headline as he trounces along, and he made a little quirky little statement when they asked, well, if it doesn't work out with the Yankees, how would you like to play at Fenway Park? And he lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, if you read through him, he said all the right things, but the point of the matter is my bottom line, and we'll do a lot of talking this fall, the hot stove, and once we get into where he goes is I think the Yankees, what they're going to end up doing is basically say, hey, go out there and test the market, and whatever number comes back, they'll match, because there's no way they want him to come east. If he does come east to Fenway, you can bet damn well that Devers will be in a pinstripe. But some interesting games, nothing bouncing off, through the eye test here, Scottie. Some interesting numbers, I thought. Fried opened at 180, now 195 against Suarez. We know Philly's in the back end there. What do you have in the NL East, since our buddy TJ's here? for records right now between the Mets and the Braves?
Well, what I've got is I've got a total of projection here that the Mets win 99 games and the Atlanta Braves win 98 and a half.
So
Of course, you can't win a half a game like that. So ideally, they're about even as it comes down to the end. But I will say this, and I know TJ's on the line here. I don't think it matters, and I don't mean that in like you're supposed to be the top two, and they get a bye, and that's supposed to set up your pitching and all that stuff, which is really good. That's a good thing. But when you're the Mets and you can throw DeGrom and Scherzer out there, and then Bassett. The truth of the matter is it doesn't really matter that much if they win it all or they don't in terms of the division. I think they're going to win the division. I still say that. I don't think the Braves are going to catch them. Now, having said that, it's anything's possible. It's just but look at like tonight, right? The Braves have to play the Phillies and the Mets have to beat up on the Pirates. That's not so bad. So that's the way it's supposed to be the rest of the playoffs. Not playoffs, the rest of the way. The Mets have the better schedule. And if they have the better schedule, they should hold off whatever Atlanta does. So I like the Braves here. Now, in the National League, the only thing that's still out there for me anyway, the only thing that's still out there is whether San Diego holds off Milwaukee. They only got a 2-game lead right now over Milwaukee for the wild card spot, and as it plays out, and at the end, if you kind of project out numbers, I think that holds. I think San Diego holds. I think that Soto has not performed as nearly as the type of thing they thought they were going to get, but they could have certainly been depressed over that Tatis crap. So who knows what's going to happen there? But they got to win games. They got to win games. One of the interesting things, and I have it pulled up because I thought I'd like to do this from time to time. Haven't done it for a while. So in the past 30 days, what do the records look like, right? Just for the last 30 days. The St. Louis Cardinals, Atlanta Braves, Houston Astros, all 21-9. That's pretty damn good. And when you're coming down the stretch and you're playing good baseball, that's what you want, right? Toronto Blue Jays, Tampa Bay Rays, and Seattle Mariners, 20-10. Again, really good. So that's how many teams? That's 6 teams that are playing 667 baseball. That's really amazing to me that they got that going on. And then you have teams like the Marlins, right? They fell off the planet. They're 9-21. They got better pitching than 9-21. They just can't hit, and that tells me Don Mattingly's not going to come back. He's just not. Kansas City Royals, Pittsburgh Pirates, 10-20. The Angels, 12-18. Texas, 12-18. These are teams that are better than that, and they're not performing that well. So it's just interesting to kind of look at some of that stuff, like the Twins, 14-16. But as we get down to it, the only league that's going up for discussion in the American League is the Central. And there are 18 games left for the White Sox. White Sox have 18 games left to try to catch Cleveland. Right now, they're 3 games back or something like that, I think it is. Maybe more. It might be 3 games. And what's interesting is Tony La Russa went out on August the 30th. The White Sox on August 30th record was 63-65. Today, if you look at their standings, they are 74-70. They've gone 11-5 without Tony La Russa. And I've been calling for him to get fired all year because I think he's the guy that's holding this team back. And as it plays out between Fangraphs and between Baseball Prospectus, they think Cleveland hangs on. And I just look back and go, okay, if Cleveland hangs on and they win by 3 or 4 games like what those two are projecting, I look at it and go, God, if you would have just got rid of him way sooner, you could have done so much better. I mean, so much better. Cleveland is 16-14 in the last 30 days, and the White Sox are 16-14 in the last 30 days. So they're not gaining any ground. So that's where I think that some of these organizations need to get their head out of the sand, and they need to try to do something to make something right, because you go 11-5 without the manager. That's a pretty good thing. Look what the Phillies did when they got rid of Joe Girardi. They've been on a big run since then. So anyway, I have one play for tonight. I bet Seattle tonight. Robbie, we talk about Robbie Ray and not bet on Robbie Ray, but tonight's the night you want to be on Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray's playing the Angels tonight. The Angels against left-handed pitching are 27th in all of baseball out of 30 teams. So that's not very good. And now you then look at it from a perspective of XFIP and Sierra. Robbie Ray over the last 30 days, 3.54, 3.28. Lorenzen, who he's pitching against tonight, this will be his second start since the IL, and you know how I feel about those things. His first start was actually halfway decent. He threw his game score 52, so I'm expecting him to get beat up. And his XFIP numbers don't look good. I mean, it's a 7.06 Sierra number, 5.83 XFIP number. That's not good. And he's been really bad against Seattle. He's pitched against them twice so far this year. First time he faced them, it was a game scored 40. Second time was a game scored 25. He's been getting crushed against them. So Robbie Ray looks really good to me. He's got a 2.13 batting average against 0.85 whip rate. So not even a guy getting on base per 9 innings. He's over 8 on strikeouts per 9 innings. So his ex-WOBA number is 242, which means he's well below average. Average in that neighborhood is about 320. So he's way good when it comes to that. And when it comes to Lorenzen, when he faces Seattle, 418. So he's almost double bad. So I also looked at it from a perspective of in the last 7 games. That's not a total thing, but it creates a trend. 1-6, the Angels are in the last 7 games. Seattle's still trying to win these games. They're not going to catch Houston, but they still want to position themselves in the wild card if they can. So I like Seattle. You can play it on the run line if you want to. We always say 150 is kind of the number. I just played it at 160 and said, let's go.
All righty. Well, it's that time of the week. We're entering week number 2 of Mr. Lucky's Locks and Bagels, a good friend of the show, someone that we like to call friend, joining us here. A weekly review, a little recap on what happened, not just in week 1, what he saw, but also how he did in the Circa, which we'll get to in the second half of the show, and then what he's seeing outside looking in for week 2. So without further ado, let's bring him into our studios, the one and only Mr. Lucky himself. Afternoon, sir.
Afternoon. How's everybody doing today?
Rockstar like, my friend.
TGI football time.
Week 1 is complete, Mr. Lucky. I know you're not in the Survivor contest, but on every show I've said it, so I'm going to say it again. 6,133 people walked down to the D and dropped $1,000 to either Mr. Benson or Derek himself in hopes to win $6 million plus. And of those people, 2,685 are left, and 502 more are blessed that had the Saints, who the Falcons, up 16 at home in the fourth quarter, lose outright. And otherwise, there would be just over 2,100. And again, I know you do the Circa contest. We talked about it, all 3 of us here on Friday. 10 road dogs, 10 road favorites.
Yeah.
For me, in my local suicide pool, I was the only one that had the cojones to take the Commanders. I wanted to see as many of those train wrecks crash, and we had a couple ties. We had a couple train wrecks crash. Week 1, what'd you see, Mr. Lucky?
I mean, what a week. I mean, Steven Spielberg couldn't have scripted that week any better. I mean, what amazing, amazing games. I was very, very fortunate with the Steelers. We got our win. Um, but real quick, Jeff, if Mr. Benson or Mr. Stevens limoed me to Vegas to join the Survivor contest, I would say no thanks. So my condolences to everybody that's a culprit there. What a week! You know, it was an interesting week because, as you guys know, week 1 is hit or miss. I mean, you've got teams that you don't know anything about. This year, I thought it was very prevalent that few squads that decided to take a vacation during preseason. I mean, it showed. I mean, I'm not a football coach in the NFL, but my eyes told me a lot of defenses are ahead of the offense. And that was very obvious in many games. There were a lot of unders. By the way, I did also mention if I was going to play a total last week, it was in the confines of South Beach. It's an interesting week. You know, we went 4-1. Thanks for playing, 49ers. A monsoon came in and they were up 10-0 with 5 minutes left. And I tell you, I have a pet peeve with my trio. Mr. Lucky on Sunday, when he puts his bets out there for his pocketbook, I don't go out texting my buddies, hey, I'm up 13-0. Hey, I'm up 17-0. My brother texted me in the second quarter as I'm running errands. You're looking real good, and you've got the Steelers up 17-3. You know what I did, gentlemen? I turned my phone off. Do you know why? Because I was born on Friday night, but not last night. You heard that one before, Jeff Dawson? I mean,
Listen,
there's 60 minutes.
You all two of you right here know how superstitious I am. I do not talk about a game. I do not post a game till the final bell, and I make sure that the ticket shows graded. I don't care if I won by 10 or I lost by 10. And I have people all over the universe that have our plays, and then they'll do the same thing. And I don't know how politely I can say, hey, do me a favor. Wait till the game is graded. I don't care if I'm up 21. I mean, here I'm sitting there, as you know, the ECSI VIP 3-team parlay went 2-1. We should have hit all 3 parlays. The last leg was Atlanta plus 200 on the money line at 8-1. We hit the other 2 with them with the spread, with the Browns, and with the Chiefs going box to wire. But the cherry on top was Atlanta winning outright, which again is for another day. This week's card, not the card, we'll get to the Circa in a few minutes. You sit down, you wake up Sunday night, Monday morning, you take a look at this week's lines. What jumped, week 2 is usually overreaction week,
Yes.
especially. With that said, obviously, no Dak Prescott, so Cincinnati is a 7-point favorite at Dallas. I know myself and a lot of my colleagues very, very surprised that the Patriots opened up 1.5-point favorites. And I'm just going to say this. It has nothing to do with TJ Watt. It has nothing to do with the fact that Najee Harris was a little banged up, because the look-ahead line was 1.5, and they didn't move it off of that. So that was an eye-opener. What did Mr. Lucky's eyes see?
Same. I mean, Vegas is a lot, again, and I'll repeat myself, but Vegas is a lot smarter than us. And they're begging you to take the Steelers. I mean, if you go down to the local grocery store in Cape Cod in an hour, everybody will take the Steelers, even in New England, because it looks too obvious. Proceed with caution, my friends. There's a reason it opened up. I don't care for that game, Jeff, because I see both teams winning. You know, I think I mentioned last week to both of you, one of the things that I try and do is when I look at the card, if it's a game I like, what do I see happening? And if I see both teams potentially winning the game, I'll put a little asterisk for the dog. But in this case, because you're in a situation where the Patriots lost and are playing the back-to-back road game. That is an overrated scenario. Back-to-back road means nothing. That team lost the first game, they can win the second game. I look at that more if it's a third straight road game. Then that team will have no gas left. So I think the Patriots are very live in that game. Steelers won, and I'm happy they did. Five plus turnover ratio. They were out yardaged, 432 to 267. By the way, Scott, there were 5 games where the team that got out yardage still won.
No, I knew it was a big number.
And that's normal. I mean, that's normal. We'll have that again this week because you can't predict turnovers. You can't predict a bad call, perhaps. That was the one that jumped out at me. I also thought that, the Rams at 13.5 was a big number. That's been bet down, I know. There are 4 double-digit dogs this week. So I would say proceed with caution, people, bettors. It's a tough week. Mr. Lucky is got 2 games he likes right now. I don't know. I mean, I think it's an unusual situation because you've got a couple of teams that lost last week, and they are not going to go 0-2, but will they cover? That's the key because it's about the number, as you said earlier. We're betting teams, but we're really betting the number. Are the Broncos going to win? Of course. If they don't win, I'll walk to Cape Cod and buy you lunch tomorrow. Green Bay's going to win. Broncos are going to win. Rams are going to win. This is just Mr. Lucky talking, but that's how I see it. So then you break it down. If they're going to win, are they going to cover? I thought the Seattle line was a little bit odd at +9. I think it opened at 9.5, Jeff. Could be wrong on that. I'm looking at it right now. I think it's actually at 8.5. I could be wrong. I didn't look at it the last hour or 2 hours. But what are we going to get in Seattle, San Francisco? Seattle played their Super Bowl. They're on short rest. You've got a rookie quarterback in the Niners. They're the better team. Seattle could be flatter than a pancake, but they've played very well in San Francisco. I think that game you pass. And I'll rock your boat before the end of the show. I've got a trend for you that's going to tell you who you are going to play in that game, if you play it. You probably already know it because you're smiling. And trends can be my friend. But Scott will even like this one because it's a team trend.
I was going to make this statement, and then I'm going to refer to Scottie here for a second.
Yes.
The other game that I thought the number came a tad short that kind of opened my eyes was the Ravens only 3.5 against the Dolphins. Now, we all talked about the Dolphins in week 1 and how bad the Pats not were just playing in preseason, but just the atmosphere and what was going on in Foxborough. They laid an egg, and Bill's just saying it was 2 big plays. It was the strip sack, and it was the Waddle touchdown. And then I'll flip it to Scottie's side as well. I kept wondering why the Bucs were 2.5-point favorites, why the Bucs were 2.5 favorites. And again, I finally decided that the Bucs was the right side there. Didn't matter that Dak got hurt late. They couldn't move the ball. And I was very surprised. And this is where I give coaching an applaud. I applaud the Tampa coach. What was the first play of the game? It was a pass to Julio Jones. Why was it a pass to Julio Jones? It was to welcome him to the team, to say, you're a part of this team and we need you. And what did McVay do the Thursday before? He never once looked for Allen Robinson. Again, I put that on my timeline saying, McVay, this is what you should do. You should be welcoming a wide receiver that you need that's going to help you move the chains. It's not just cup in a cloud of dust. So my question to Scottie right now is, give us a quick temperature in Miami, in Bucksville, as the Bucks travel. Obviously, the Saints, where Tom has struggled mightily there. I thought, honestly, Atlanta was going to beat them. The Saints were going to come in 0-1, Bucks 1-0, and it was a perfect spot for Jameis to get the win, to be 1-1. Now I think Vegas stuck it to us for 2.5 again. They're enticing the Saint money, and I think Tom again will find a way to win that game.
Well, yeah, all you have to do is a little bit of research, and you're going to find that the House of Horrors is in New Orleans for Tampa Bay, and I'm going to tell you that I don't buy into any of that crap. So we saw how Tampa Bay played against Dallas. And I thought it was kind of easy for them, to be honest. I mean, they Zeke had a few good runs, but they don't have anybody to test them in the secondary, Dallas. So I was really thinking that this might be a little bit bigger test for them, and I think it will. But like we said at the beginning when you and I were talking, these teams have had so long to plan for each other. They played Atlanta. Atlanta played them really good, actually. It's statistically that was a very, very close game. When it came down to it, it was Atlanta gained 416 yards and New Orleans gained 385. So, that's one of those. Atlanta gained more yards. Now, if you're going to tell me that New Orleans, who couldn't stop the run against the Falcons, and now they're going to get to have to stop the run against the Bucks, I think it's a problem. Now, I don't think it's a problem because I think they're going to run all day. I think it's because once they start to load up and try to stop the run, because if they can't, that's going to open up the pass. And then as the pass opens up, I think that they just dominate the game. Because if you think about what their defense did last week, I think their defense is geared up. When they went to the Super Bowl, that's what they did. They held teams to basically no yards, and it made it hard for them to move. And then as they came down there, they did pretty well. I look at this game and say, okay, well, I'll take the Bucks on the road, even though we got the House of Horrors they're going to play in, and they're going to lose somewhere else that maybe everybody thinks they're going to win, because I think at this point everybody thinks they're going to lose, and I don't think that's the case. You know what I mean? I think you should think the other way. I think find a spot where you think they're going to win and they're probably going to lose in one of those kind of spots. I don't know where it'll be, maybe once we start looking at them. But, the point being, I think as we move forward, I look at this game when you matched them up, Atlanta, after 1 week, their defense is very poor. I'm sorry. Why did I say Atlanta? Why am I looking at Atlanta? I keep got Atlanta on my damn head. New Orleans. When you look at them, they're supposed to be a lot better on defense than what they were. You can't bring a 29th ranked defense in and beat the Bucks. You can't, because the defense alone for the Bucks will keep them in that game. And if all you need is a field goal, give me the field goal.
Mr. Lucky, I'm going to bring this up here, and then we're going to circle the wagons back to your trend at the end of the show. How's that sound?
Sounds good, sir.
Well, don't hold me to this because I am as dumb as a bag of bricks, but we're going to see if this works. Look at that there. Huh? Who needs a producer? I do.
Like it.
Week 2 Circa Millions, where Lucky you start 4-1. Congrats there. How many people were 5-0?
I believe 287. Don't hold under 300.
Okay.
Between 250 and 300 were 5-0. I believe 800 and change were 4-1 out of
Okay.
4,700 that entered. Not
All
bad.
right.
I'll
Not
take it.
bad. So
I go
as
1-1.
I like to say very simply, it's a new week.
Yep.
Last week's record is meaningless, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek. It's like yesterday's shower is meaningless today. It's a brand new board. It came out on Wednesday night. You've had a few nights to sleep on it. Again, I have done contests every time with a partner. Um, we talk about games. We each pick two, then we decide on the third. Or there's been some partnerships where I pick the five. We agree, we disagree. You're in a trio, which makes it harder. And then the Sunday morning and Monday morning quarterbacks or the updates, obviously, as we know, are not needed. You got the card on Wednesday. It's Friday at 4:47 back east here on sunny Cape Cod. Walk us through exactly what you're seeing, what you're processing. Again, you don't have to give us your card, but just some thoughts where, hey, there are 3, 4 games that we're leaning toward. Take it away. It's your stage.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we decided to do this year, I being the president of the trio, we're not going to have a woulda, coulda, shoulda. We're going to enjoy the process, and we are going to have conviction for our decisions. Ultimately, we do talk, we do decide on our consensus plays, if you will, and then we break each game down, and I sort of make the final decision because I'm the oldest and the one that been doing this the longest. Few things that I looked at when I saw the lines come out initially, and I tend to look at this on Monday a little bit. I take Tuesdays off, refresh, have a little fun on Twitter. I do my sarcasm. I see what a few of the people I respect in the industry say. I'm a sponge for information. Love talking to people about the games. You've got four double-digit favorites. Mr. Lucky's going on the limb right now, and he will tell you two of those four will cover. So I put that on the side. Is it going to be the Rams? Is it going to be the Broncos? Is it going to be the Packers? It's going to be Buffalo. Now, kind of what the Scott said. If you go by last week, nobody will want to take the Rams because Atlanta played New Orleans very tough and should have won the game. The Broncos pretty much manhandled Seattle, especially in the second half. We know what happened. You know, Nathaniel Hackett went back to Paul Hackett and must have called him and said, "What should we do on a 64-yarder?" Seattle loses that game. The line's a lot different for Seattle and San Francisco. I am intrigued, Jeff, by Jags and the Colts. I think the Colts, I mean, they're, what is that, the scene of the crime? It's a revenge spot for the Colts, different quarterback. I thought the Jags played pretty well. I don't like 4 on the road. Mr. Lucky has that one on his radar. I don't like Washington, Detroit. Pass. Either team can win. I don't like either quarterback. Thanks for playing. 100% in agreement with Scottie on his analysis with Tampa and New Orleans. The whole world will be on New Orleans. Tampa can't win back-to-back games. Tampa struggled a little bit against Dallas. Tom couldn't get the ball in the red zone. Well, you know what Tampa did for me, Jeff? I had Leo Fournette, and I won my fantasy down 81-0. What a week it was, Jeff Dawson. Leo Fournette, Mr. Scottie Webb, he came to play, and they showcased him. He's a heck of a player. And I think Scott was nails. They will run the ball. And one thing about that game I don't like, I am not a fan of Dennis Allen. I still want to see what these Saints are, sans Mr. Sean Payton, who, by the way, might be the next coach somewhere. I'll leave this one for later, Mr. Dawson. Steelers and the Patriots, I don't know. I'd say it's a pass. It's the Patriots or nothing for me. in that game. That's kind of the morning schedule. I kind of break it down to morning and afternoon. Afternoon, we've got the Rams in Atlanta. I don't know. Are we going to get the good Stafford? Are we going to get a team that's going to be hungry? One thing about the Rams in that game, that's their easiest game all year at home. That's their easiest cupcake, if you will, if we're buying that Atlanta's not more than a 3 or 4 win team. Seattle, San Francisco, I have no idea. By all accounts, Seattle looked good on. Did they look good? They won. Did they look good? They got out yardage 433 to 253. They'll come to play, I think. Geno's 9-0. We've seen that on Twitter. We've seen that on the NBC Nightly News. Everybody knows Geno Smith is 9-0. You know what that tells me? That might be a Ricky Roma special. Do you remember who Ricky Roma is? He's Al Pacino and Glenn Ross. Go to my pinned tweet. That's a Ricky Roma special. Packers and Bears, I don't know. Who's Aaron throwing to? Jeff, are you going to try out tomorrow for the second receiver? I don't know. They should win by 10 or more. Here's the real tricky one for the week. My 82-year-old mom thinks Cincinnati is going to destroy Dallas. And they might. Mr. Lucky going to play that one in his contest? No. I've seen weird things happen. And Dallas has Micah Parsons. You've got a little hangover perhaps in Cincinnati. Not sold on Cincinnati yet. This one, to me, it just stands out as a blowout. Denver and Houston. You got Lovie Smith, who should have won that game. I still don't understand his thinking. They were up 20-3. You guys saw what happened at the end, right, where he decided to punt. Come on, Lovie. First game of the year. You guys aren't going to go to the playoffs. Win the game. I think Denver's going to put a whooping on them. I'm looking at that one on my card. Here's the other. What's that line you say, Jeff Dawson, about this one has a stench odor about it? You've got Arizona going to Vegas. Raiders are a horrible home favorite. Horrible. Arizona's on a downward spiral. I don't know. You know how I feel about the coach. You know who I think is going to be the first coach fired. I mean, Derek Carr, if you have him on fantasy, start him. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. But you've got a back door in place. We're looking at that one, frankly. That's probably a possibility. I've got a pretty good feel for the Monday night games. I tend to not want to play a Monday night game in general because it's the only game on the board. Tennessee at Buffalo. What do you think, Jeff? I mean, there's no chance Tennessee's going to win that game, right?
Well, it's funny you bring up the 2 Monday games because your initial thought is what you remember last. And what do you remember last? You remember the Titans blowing a 13-0 lead or whatever the score was, and then the Giants coming back, tying it. Well, actually 1 down, going for 2 and winning the game, number 1. You remember the Bills team outscoring the defending Super Bowl champs 21-0. They've had some extra days rest there. Their home opener last year, Lucky, was on a Sunday. 6.5, 7-point favorites against the Steelers. They lost. But I'm going to step down to the game even below it. Eagles -2. Now, Eagles they could do what they wanted offensively, but they gave up a lot of points, especially late to the Lions. This line opened at 1.5, and is now 2. I'm just going to give you the smell test here. I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say it's a Vikings number. I would respect the Eagles 3.5. At less than a field goal, I think they're lining windows up to say, hey, you get the Eagles Monday night, tough place to play. Kirk Cousins, yeah, thanks for playing. Eagles win by 3 or more. Real leery. I think it's a Vikings number.
Hey, did you talk to my psychiatrist about who I like for the Circa this week? You're 100% on the money. That's a Vikings number, and I think the Vikings actually go to Philly and Cousins might even talk to Ben Franklin, and I might even put a Ben Franklin on that one. I like the Vikings there. That'll be on Mike's Circa contest. And one thing about the Tennessee Titans, I do think they played hard. I wanted to look at something here, and I should have been a little bit more prepared. I wanted to see who. Oh yeah, that's who it was. Guess who Buffalo has next week? Have you looked?
No, I haven't.
They've got the Dolphins. This is kind of a sandwich spot to borrow a line from our good buddy on Twitter, Marco D'Angelo. I think Tennessee's going to fight in that game. I know people will think I'm nuts, and I probably am, but that's a Tennessee or pass for me. And Vikings, Vikings were impressive. I think the culture is there. They've got weapons all over the field. What's going to stop me from taking the Vikings? Nothing, unless, Kirk Cousins makes an interception that'll kill us. But I think it's a good play. I think there's a value on the Vikings, no doubt about it. That's kind of the board. There's a couple games I absolutely don't like, and I think I passed over the Jets and the Browns. I don't know. I mean, Joe Flacco, he owns the Browns, but that was Joe Flacco 2012, 2013, right? Browns are going to run the ball, might be an under. I don't trust the Browns laying 6, 7. I just don't. Here comes my shocker of the week. Giants can't lose at home, can they? They're 1-0. Brian has huevos. Excuse the pun. Carolina, getting 2 points? Guess when's the last time the Giants won a home opener, Jeffrey Dawson?
It's been a while.
Your daughters were, I believe, in grade school. Carolina or pass.
Well, I'll piggyback off of that because I went to the Monday night games just from the eye test. Again, I thought the Ravens number was short, so I think the Ravens win by 3 or less there, number one. It's a Commanders number. Now, I know there's stats out there that the Lions haven't been favored in forever. Right. That's still a Commander. That's still a Commanders number there. And then I'm going to go to the Giants because, again, like I talked about the Vikings and Philly, that's the same exact thing. If you wanted to insert Carolina and the Browns from week 1, this is just a flip of it. The whole world will be on the Giants. They looked great in that second half. Home opener. Daniel Jones is back. Barkley's back. Crowd's going to be going crazy. That smells to holy heaven to me as well.
Now, Mr. Lucky, I will not be on the Giants. That's kind of the card, it'll be interesting because I'll be very happy with a 4-1 week. I will do jumping jacks from here to Cape Cod, but it's a marathon. Any thoughts, Scottie? Anything that I mentioned that you raised an eyebrow? I have no idea, Jeff, on the Dolphins and Ravens. I lean Dolphins. I really think that team is good. Defensively, I think they're good. So, what do you think, Scottie?
Well, I think this week coming up is a good week to not just look at who did what last week, but look at who their coordinators are and see what kind of matchups you have. And the reason I say that is because, again, you got a shorter week preparing wise. I think the better coordinators are going to have advantages here. And if you can find the right spots, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. Now, it's kind of tough to find one in New England, right? Because offensive coordinator wise by committee or whatever. But when you're looking at football games, it's a little different than looking at baseball games because in a baseball game you're looking at a pitcher more than most things. In a football game, you got to start with the quarterback, and then you got to look at the wide receivers and then the defense, right? And then everybody forgets that the coordinators who create the scheme actually do pretty well. So think about the Buffalo Bills game with the Rams. You think that the Rams had a great coordinated defensive effort? I don't think they did. I think they got crushed in that game. I think they got outcoached. I think they were out. The Bills came in and said, "Hey, we're better than the champs, and we're going to show you," and they did. Now, does that carry forward? Well, I think some of it does, and some of it doesn't. Like you talk about in Arizona, Kingsbury. I think that that's a guy that offensively, he likes to do certain things and just to show that beat his chest and say how good he is. But his defense is getting lit up, and I think his defense is going to continue to get lit up. And they play one of the teams that have one of the best wide receivers now in the Raiders, right? So I think you're going to be in a spot where some of these matchups aren't good for the team that's playing. I think that's one of them. When you start to think about, okay, Las Vegas is getting ready to play, they got beat, but they played the Chargers, right? So okay, that's no shame in losing to the Chargers. So now they play Arizona. And you've got a spot here, and I'm just kind of looking at DVOA defense versus receivers, and Arizona's 32 out of 32 teams. That's not very good. And now you've got the guy they got from Green Bay over there, wide receiver. So I'm telling you, this is and Waller.
Yes.
So you've got spots here that I think you can take advantage of. You just got to find them, and be careful because I think this is a week where it's less caution, I guess was where I'm going to approach this, where last week was all caution because all the home dogs, they're going to win. Some of them are. We just got to figure out who. This week, I don't think you have so much to worry about that way because teams are going to be more true to who they are. I think that secondly, you're also going to see, some teams struggle. I think Denver's going to play really good this week. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. I mean, I just put it in the book. I think that's what's going to happen. Houston's going to go out there and have an issue. So, it's just a couple of spots there in the NFL. I think if you start to think about it, you can pick them out a little bit.
Very, very true. I was just going to mention there were 8 teams that lost at home last week. Talking about what Scottie just said, if you kind of do a little CSI here, you'll know who's a good play this week. Little angle I use, Mr. Lucky's angle, let's call it. And I also like the fact that you've got a couple of teams that will not go 0-2. If the Raiders go 0-2, Jeff Dawson, drinks on me at the Circa March Madness.
Well, it's kind of comical in that game where again, they opened up 3.5-point underdogs at home to the Chiefs. A correction went to 6.5. They couldn't get any money on Arizona. Chiefs could have scored 60 if they wanted to that game. And now it was a 3.5, 4, a correction to 6. Is that an overreaction? Now it is getting bet down to 5.5. My 2 cents, especially from a fantasy side, where Carr had lockjaw on Adams. It was his college sweetheart, I should say. They paid him a boatload, had to make sure he got fed. They got a stud wide receiver in Hunter Renfrow. They got one of the best tight ends in Waller. McDaniels had to make his stamp as a Patriot coach, now Raider coach, by having Bolden score a touchdown. It wasn't Jacobs. So he gets a little too cute for his britches, okay? So it's a game that not only should they win, they should win handily. But I will just say this. This Arizona team not only started the year 7 or 8-1 last year, they were undefeated the first half of the year on the road. They took their game to another level on the road. Now, you can sit in your shit as long as you want. You go down to Vegas and you spend Saturday night at the Spearmint Rhino instead of getting ready for the game, okay, and you lose again by 25 or 30, you're just telling your team and your fan base, hey, it's not us, it's the coach. And they just paid for him and an extension, and they just paid the quarterback.
I didn't even. Did you guys like the body language of the Cardinals last week? I did not.
It was over
And
in the
real.
first quarter.
Oh gosh, look. And on the fantasy point, Scott, excellent point, Scott. Waller's going to have a huge game. Kelsey had, I think, 8 receptions and 121 because he was on my fantasy team, Jeff. Let me repeat, Jeff. I won my fantasy down 81-0.
Well, listen,
You're just slow getting out of the garage. That's all.
Love you guys. Thank you for inviting me back.
always the one and only Mr. Lucky. You can follow him on Twitter at Follow Fade. He does follow back. A great, great friend of the show and the odds couple, as he knows that. And again, week to week, Friday closing bell at from 4 to 5, actually about 7 minutes over today. Mr. Lucky, have a great weekend. We'll be following you on Twitter. Keep us updated on your card as it progresses. You don't have to let the cat out of the bag, and we won't give you any updates on Sunday or Monday. How's that sound?
Perfect. Have a great week, Scott. I might send you a couple of my leans. I'll DM you. Scott liked my Steelers pick last week, and that was nice to hear, Scott. I was put a little more juice on it when you thought it was a good play. So appreciate you, buddy. I appreciate you.
Have a good week, sir.
Anyway, have a great week. Love you guys. Thank you for inviting me. Everybody, be careful this week. Go light. Adios.
Adios, amigos. The one and only Mr. Lucky has left the ECSI studio as we went over the card.
Hey Jeff, so let me ask you this question before we get out. So if you were looking at quarterback play for last week, and then you stack rank them right 1 through 32, whatever, which is what happens, and then you sit here and you go, okay, we have certain guys at the top of the list. I mean, Geno Smith ranked 4th last week, right? So you got Geno Smith ranking 4th up there. Tua's 8th. Carson Wentz 9. Jameis Winston 10. You got Daniel Jones 11, right? So you got these guys in the top 10 that aren't normally in the top 10, and then you got guys like Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr and Joe Burrow and Matt Stafford in the bottom 10. Do you think that flips around in week 2, or do you think it stays consistent, meaning that these guys are who they say they are after week 1?
Well, I'm going to go to a couple in the front and the top half that don't belong there. First of all, if there was a shocker of all shockers, hats off to Geno. I was stunned how good he looked. I thought the commentators said it best. There was a competition between Geno Smith and Locke throughout the preseason. They were playing snaps, meaningful snaps. Geno won the battle. You could see that as a Denver team who didn't play at all during the preseason, and an emotional Russ having to come back to the scene of the crime in Seattle and then go out. So I'm going to go back to Daniel Jones. It was all in the 4th quarter. I'm going to go to Jameis Winston. Again, it was all in the 4th quarter. I don't know if anyone was watching the game. Jameis was heading to the locker room, and Andy Dalton was putting his helmet on like Jameis was hurt. And then Atlanta got a couple first downs. Jameis came back out of the locker room, and then that's when they started their comeback down 16 there. So those two, I think, will come back down to reality. As for Rodgers, hey, listen, I talk about this religiously. At Tampa last year, 10-0 lead, driving on the 50, throws a pick 6, and you outscored him 40-0 or whatever it was there. He has that smug, that diva look. Down 7-0, first offensive play of the year. He hits Christian Watson, which would have been a 70, 75-yard touchdown, and he drops it. That game was changed immediately right there. So, yes, I expect some bounce back. I expect some flip-flops, and I think you're 100% spot on.
So I think certain players played what they're supposed to be. So Mills in Houston, 27th. Trubisky, 28th. I'm not sure about Trey Lance. Can't give him a fair shake because he played in the rain. Flacco, 25th. Jeff Goff is 24th. So then you have to see who are those guys playing against, right? So Mills, 27th best quarterback in the league after game one. We're not expecting him to go up from that. We're expecting him to stay right in that same ballpark. Well, he's facing Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was number 3 in a loss. Now, that means that he played pretty well, and his team fumbled at the 1-yard line twice. So I think that you can – what I'm trying to get at is if you start to look at things in certain ways, you can probably understand how to bet week 2 in the NFL is where I'm going. Is you got certain guys that are going to be there. Russell Wilson's going to be there, and you know that Mills is going to be where he's at. That's consistency. It's what it's going to be. And Houston actually played a great game last week, tied, went into overtime, and now they got to go play a shorter against Denver in Denver, and it's going to be a rough spot for them and a good spot maybe for Denver. So I just think that you can find those kind of things like Rodgers, right? He's not going to be at the bottom forever. I mean, so does that mean that he's going to go out and destroy Chicago? Probably, because where do you put the Chicago quarterback? Shit, he ranks where he didn't even rank because he didn't throw enough passes. So it's one of those spots where okay, we figure it out and we kind of move along.
Well, it's been a great Friday. You talked about FSU. You talked about in baseball the Seattle Mariners. For the ECSI VIPs, we'll get an alert out soon. 3-1 this week. We've only given out 4 games. We're going with the quality over quantity. If you want the honest truth, I had the Chargers plus 3.5. Actually, it was plus 4 on the desk. And I was upset the night before. We had the Orioles team total over 4.5 versus that, whatever you want to call him, Patrick Corbin, and they struggled through 6, but they got there. So got a couple eyes on our baseball games. I really can't find that damn value in the FSU. I think they're pretty spot on, 30-27. Scottie, I do know in the past FSU has had some problems at Louisville. I don't know if you can pull up what their record is, say the last 6 times. I know I had FSU a few times during the Lamar area, and they got spanked. I know one was on a game day. What is FSU at Louisville like the last 6 games?
Let's see. Hang on one second. And I'll have it for you. So Florida State and Louisville. Last year, it was in Florida State. So it was 23-21. Florida State got beat. The year before that, it was obviously at Louisville, and it was 16-48. Florida State got beat. The year before that, it was in Florida State. They won 35-24. At Louisville, they won 28-24. And then in 2017, Louisville at home, they got beat 28-31. So it's kind of been back and forth a little bit.
All right. I mean, it'll be a fun game. It's Friday, so either you're watching baseball or you're flipping through to some college.
They've played 22 times, Jeff. Florida State's 16-6, so they ain't lost too many times.
Well, I know Lamar absolutely spanked them one year.
They're 6-10 against the spread the last 16.
Muhammad Ali was there, I think, for the opening kickoff in game day. I have a show tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Should be 1 hour, and then myself and Scottie will be on live around 10:30ish, give or take a few minutes during game day. We'll go over the whole college slate. On Sunday morning, myself and Riley will touch on the NFL. Scottie, if you have a couple NFL plays for Sunday, have them handy for everyone tomorrow morning as well. We'll have that ready. So, guys, just don't be the pizza guy today. I didn't go into that. long song and dance. You know the drill, everyone watching and listening here. It's Friday, it's payday, okay? And a lot of people, instead of going home, are going to run to the casinos. They're going to run to their sports books. They're not going to pay their bills. They're going to try to catch lightning in a bottle. They're going to call the wife and say, hey, hon, I'm bringing home dinner. And then they get caught up in the 7 o'clock games, and then they start chasing the 10 o'clock games, and the rest is history. They come home at 11:30 with cold pizza or cold whatever and the pillow and the blanket on the couch. So if you want to be that guy, God bless you. Otherwise, just be smart here, will you? So from myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one, the only, beam 'em up, Scottie at Webby 20 MLB. We wish everyone a blessed evening. Have some fun, cash some tickets, and we will see you bright and early tomorrow morning.